I'm here in my sewing room with my lovely assistant Violet. Isn't she gorgeous? And I'm going to teach you how to make this really simple face mask. Ready? Let's go. Okay, so for supplies, all you need is fabric that measures, it can't be smaller than a 15 by 8. So I cut myself a piece of cardboard, 15 inches by 8 inches. I lay that right on top of my fabric. I've already cut my fabric. And I use my rolling cutter. You can use scissors, whatever. Zip, zip, zip. And you're good to go. All right. This is good. I recommend having a pattern if you plan on making more than one. And then you don't have to measure every time. You literally just lay it on top of your fabric. I put my cutting mat underneath so I don't damage tables and ruin my rolling cutter. Again, super easy. Clip it with scissors, okay? The only other material you're going to need besides thread and either by hand or by sewing machine with pins is your elastic. Now I have two kinds of elastic. Color doesn't matter. There's this really thin, flat elastic. This has a lot of give to it. I'll need 7 inches per side, so 14 inches total of a thin elastic. And you cut that to 7 inches with 2 pieces. The other one I have is a round elastic, and this one is a bit tighter, so I use a minimum of 8 inches of this, so that's per side, so I would need 16 inches total if it's tight and round, this kind of elastic. Again, color doesn't matter. If you have black that's flat, doesn't matter at all. Okay, so now we've got it all cut and we are ready to move on. So I'm going to take my long flat piece, lay it down, and meet my long ends together. So I've now folded it in half this way. I'm going to measure and mark 3 inches in from either side, 3 inches here, 3 inches here, and put a pin in it. So here's my measurer. I'm going to go 3 inches in and on the other side, 3 inches in. So that's what it looks like, okay? Now I'm going to sew on my machine the corner to the pin and this pin to the corner. I'm going to leave the middle section open. Now make sure you do a back and forth stitch that kind of locks in your stitches right at the pins and at the edges, okay? So let's do that now. I pull out my pins as I go. I don't like sewing over my pins. I lift it up, I pull it through, I go to my next pin, and I set my presser foot down, pull out my next pin, put my needle in, and get going. Pull it out, clip your threads. Alright, so now I've stitched the corner to that 3-inch marker, left a hole in the middle, 3-inch marker to the edge. You can't see the color thread. I used a weird light color. Alright, now I'm going to take my scissors and clip off just that extra threads right there at the middle. Alright, now that seam is going to go in the center. So I'm going to find it here at the center. You can measure. I just eyeball it. We're going to lay that flat, okay? So this seam goes right through the middle. I'm going to take my 7-inch elastic. So I've got this like here. I'm going to take it and shove it inside that crease and leave just a little bit exposed. Take my pin and lock it in place, like so. Alright, make sure I pull it taut, that my seam is still in the center. And I'm going to make sure that my elastic is pushed in. I can feel it way over here. I'm going to stitch all the way down this side, but I need to make sure that my elastic is coming out here. Now at the 7 inches, it's going to be tight. So you can pin it to start with, but you got to be really careful and make sure you're moving that elastic out of the way. So I'm actually going to start with only my pin in one side, and then I'm going to stitch, part way through, I'll pull out that pin, and then I'll pull my elastic further. I'll demonstrate that now. I'm going to do one on the other side as well. So I'm going to take my elastic, put it in, expose that a little bit, press the elastic in. I also want to make sure my elastic doesn't get twisted. And we will lock that in place, like so. I'm going to put it in my machine, put my needle down. Lock that in, pull my pin out. Don't want to break a needle. I'm going to sew those sides down. Now as I got to that middle seam, I'm going to reach in, find my elastic tail, pull on it gently so it'll gather up a little bit up here, but it's okay because I've already sewn that section. You should make sure the rest doesn't move. Pull it just enough so that the rest of my fabric is laying flat, and there it is peeking through. I'm going to take my pin, lock it in place, and now I will finish sewing. All the way down. You want to reach in, make sure you always know where that elastic is inside the mask. Take it all the way to the end. Pull out that pin. Lock it back and forth in place. And clip off. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so you see how it pulls a little bit right here? That's just because the elastic's a little bit shorter than the length. Okay? You want to make sure it's exposed and fully stitched. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Alright, we've got both sides stitched. I can see my little elastic corners exposed. Now, remember that little hole we left open? You're going to go find that. That is how we're turning it right side out. I reach my fingers in and find my elastic loops. It's the easiest way to turn it right side out. Those two elastic loops. Pull it all through. Ta-da, ta-da! Look at that. Ta-da! All right. Now you can stick something inside. You're going to be careful if you use scissors. You don't want to cut your fabric. Pencil, whatever. And you just want to push those corners out to make sure that they're all fully exposed, nice and pointy. All right. So this is what our mask currently looks like. All right. So now the next important section, you want to remember 1 inch, 1 inch, ½ inch, 1 inch, ½ inch, 1 inch. Okay? And what that means, this is how we're going to measure and fold our mask. All right. Now here's where you're going to pin it. You're going to, Here's where you're going to pin it. 1 inch, 1 inch, then go ½ inch, 1 inch, ½ inch, 1 inch. And what we're going to do is I'm going to move this pin and pin it on top of here to make my first fold. You will make 3 folds. Second fold, third fold. I really hope this is making sense. Alright, so like in this finished product, see we have 3 folds. 1, 2, 3. And that's now with all these pins, basically the bottom of our mask is where we started down to move our way up for our 3 folds. Alright, so my first 2 pins are going to meet like that. I'm going to pull them both out and replace it with just 1. Now, mind you, the seam where we pulled it through, that's the inside of our mask, okay? So we have an inside of our mask and we now have a bottom of our mask, okay? Now I'm going to take, so we have first fold, my next pin up. I'm going to take my third pin and fold it to where the 2 meet. Again, pull both pins out, stick 1 in my wrist, and replace over this second fold. Make sense? And lastly, I take my last 2, fold them together to where they meet, my 2 pins meet, pull them both out, and replace it with just 1 pin. And that is how I get my tri-fold on the one side. And I'm going to do the exact same thing now to my other side. Now your other side is going to be in the opposite direction though, okay? Because you want your folds to match. You want them to fold. Does that make sense? You don't want to have your fold going down here and up there. It'd be crazy. All right, so now I'll do the other side. I have folded my entire mask now. It is pinned, and I tried to pull them so I can see my seam, my fold line up on both sides, okay? So, again, this is the top of our mask. It's a little bit wider. I think that's for our long noses to fit through, and our bottom as they will stretch out. And now we're going to sew all the way around. Whoop, 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 whoop. That's it. All right, so now let's sew this and move it on. All right, so we finished our mask. Yay! Told you it was easy. Reminder, the inside and the back is still going to have this little hole. I got my pattern from Hobby Lobby, and they suggested you leave it open and you can throw a coffee filter in there or some other thin mesh-like fabric to add an extra layer of protection. My parents do it. They fold up origami style a coffee filter and then spread it out inside. But so far I felt that this has been great. Super easy. If you have any questions, please comment, let me know. Anyway, please stay safe. Wash your hands. I love you guys. Bye.